Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and this week I'm talking to Judy Wolfe, who describes herself as a person of more, and she recognizes that her relationship with food is what she had to change, and what works for her is being completely abstinent from sugar and starches and foods like pasta and chips. And just before we begin our chat, I'd like to invite you over to my website, aftersugarclub.com, to download your simple guide for getting more energy with less sugar. And while you're there, surf around. You'll find videos about what to eat, where to find whole foods in the grocery store, and also about gut health, which is absolutely central for your general health. And processed foods and refined sugar and starches are the worst things for your gut health. So that's aftersugarclub.com. And you can also find me on Instagram, where I post pictures of what I eat and what I do and, basically my life after sugar. And that's at My Life After Sugar on Instagram. And you can come say hi on my Facebook page too, Life After Sugar. Okay, here's my chat with Judy Wolfe. Okay, so Judy, so great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yes, cool. And can you tell us a little bit about your life when you were still consuming sugar?
Oh, well, it's a while ago. I say that because I first started to give up sugar in 1990.
Wow,
which is a long time ago. And I did that for a couple of years. And for me, I consider myself a food addict. At that point, I was a compulsive overeater, what I thought was a compulsive overeater. Today, I know that I'm a food addict, or some people might refer to me as a sugar addict, but I'm a person of more with everything. Mm-hmm. So I lost quite a bit of weight, over 100 pounds at that time. Took me, and then I kept it off for a couple of years. And then I took one cheese curl when I was sitting in my living room with some family and friends. And I thought, oh, that wouldn't make a difference. And believe it or not, it took me 13 years more till 2005 to find my solution, and where I have not eaten sugar since then. April 30th, 2005.
Whoa, wait a minute. A cheese curl? That's not even sugar.
Well, it's a carbohydrate. I didn't know what I didn't know. Today, I know that I can't eat sugar, flours, grains, starches, and alcohol. I can't have any one of those products. And also, because of who I am, such a person of more. I mean, I dieted my way to 288 pounds. Dieted my way to that. I was always on a diet from when I was probably 10, 12 years old, for sure. And I dieted my way to 288 pounds. So I'm a person of more. So I personally have to weigh and measure everything I put into my mouth, because people think that's like, oh, how can you do that? That's so limiting. And actually, it's freedom for me. For me, it's absolute freedom.
Yes.
Because I know that I'm getting enough, and I'm not getting too little. And it works for me.
It works for you. There you go. Yes. Whatever works for you to feel free, that is the bottom line. And do you find that, you've been measuring and weighing your food for so long, but before you worked out that this is what you needed to do to get to a place of freedom, did you just have trouble just judging how much to eat?
I actually, in the first program I was in 1990, I actually weighed my food, but with exception, when I went out to eat, I mean, I could go to a buffet and I would eat tons of food, you know, where in my home I would weigh and measure. Today, I weigh and measure everything, whether I'm at your house or out to dinner or at an affair, it doesn't matter, or in my house, I have to weigh and measure everything. I'm really a person of more. I am addicted to food. To food,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter what it is. It can be healthy food. I mean, I could overeat vegetables. I could overeat protein. Sugar and for me wasn't the most important thing. I'm a pasta, lasagna, bread person. That's who I was. But I believe today, I know from my past experience, this is what I have is a progressive disease, and that it's never going away. And that because it's progressive, my disease outside's doing push-ups while I'm inside not eating the sugar and the flour and the grains and the starches. So I can't afford to take that first bite, because I don't know where it's going to lead me. I am so sad when I have my last bite at a meal. I'm sad
Mm-hmm.
because I always want more. But if I wait 10, 15, 20 minutes, I could go 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours without eating and be just fine. I don't recommend that to anybody. I mean, unless you're doing an intermittent fast or something, but I recommend 4 to 6 hours between meals is what I would recommend.
Yeah, and that's what works for you,
That's
right?
what works for me.
Yes. And so you have found what works for you. And was that after those, how many, 13 years, did you say?
13 years. I took, by the way, I didn't tell you, I took an 80-pound bite from that cheese curl.
Yeah.
Out of that 100 I had lost, I gained back 80 pounds.
Yeah.
And I never stopped, trying to find a solution for myself in that 13 years. I never walked away. I was always looking and searching. But what I finally found was that I had to weigh and measure, and I had to not eat grains. That was the biggest kicker, because I believed that my disease had progressed, because I am what I call a low bottom, high maintenance food addict and a person of more.
And what does that mean, low bottom, high maintenance?
It means that if I was an alcoholic, you would find me in the gutter, drunk, you know, and I'd be there. And high maintenance means that it takes me a lot of work to keep doing what I do, but it's worth it. I mean, I'm not complaining, but I still, talk to people about not eating a day at a time. I still commit my food to somebody and tell them what I'm going to eat for the day. Um, I'm always connected with a community. I cannot do this personally alone
Yeah.
at all. And
Well, I,
so that's what I mean by high maintenance is I still weigh and measure. It doesn't matter that I could tell you about what something is. My brain would run away with that. The squirrel in my brain would be there, like, oh, did you have enough? Let's take some more, so I can't do that.
yeah. Do you remember when you had that squirrel in your head? Bless him. Yeah. Do you remember what he used to say to you? What was the chatter inside of your head?
Well, I want to I can describe something to you. Let's say there was a cake on the counter. I made a lovely bundt cake for my family, and it was there. And now I was committed to not eating it. And it would call to me. It would call to me and say, oh, just come have a sliver. So I'd go over and take a sliver. And then a little while later, it would call again, come take a slice, and then I would go and take a slab, and then the whole thing would be gone. I mean, it never ended. The chatter was constant. I thought about what I thought about all the time was food, getting more food, whether it be sugar, starches, it doesn't matter. It all processes the same way in your body. So it really doesn't matter.
And the
I
only
can't call myself just a sugar addict. I'm not. I mean, I want everything, and I want
Yeah.
more of everything, and I still do.
But now you know how to manage it.
I know how to manage it today because when I take my last bite, as I said, I'm very sad. But I know that I've been fed, and if I need something in between, I can have a cup of tea. I can have other things, and I will tell you, I've also given up sweeteners. I used to, part of that part of the years I have now, almost 16, April 30th will be 16 years free of sugar, grains, flours, starches, and alcohol.
Wow.
I did use sweeteners up to about 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago. Um, I made a decision to give up sweeteners, and I haven't had any form of sugar that I've taken
Knowingly.
knowingly. Right,
Yeah.
right. I may inadvertently, yes, I've eaten things, and you know what, and I feel it. Like the buzz. Like I'll feel weird, quite weird. And I know that I'll need, I make a phone call to someone because I don't want that squirrel in my head either, because
Yeah, I was just
I
gonna
made an
say.
honest mistake. It
Yeah.
wasn't that I made the decision to take it. And, but my body knows today, just like with caffeine. I can remember going, I don't know what it was, Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or something. And I asked for decaf coffee, and I had, my coffee, and oh my goodness, what I was buzzed, just absolutely buzzed, because I haven't had caffeine for even longer than 16 years. I mean, a long time. And, again, you don't know what you don't know until it happens to you. But my body is so clean and pure and sensitive that, it tells me now
Yes. And you
when I've
listen. And
inadvertently
you,
taken something I shouldn't have.
right. And you've learned how to listen to your body.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You know.
Yeah. And I find what's so inspiring is that, you know, you don't you don't seem to have this like cloud of shame around, you're not sort of tentatively sort of whispering that you're a food addict. This is who you are. Are you and if not
Can
proud of
I
it, are
can I
you
just answer?
happy?
Can I say something about that? As I'm out there telling people I'm a food addict or a sugar addict or whatever you want to call me. I'm not ashamed of that. Why should I she ashamed of having a disease? Because I believe it's a primary disease, meaning I didn't create this intentionally, just like somebody doesn't say they want cancer. Things happen in life. And I believe for me, I'm genetically disposed to being a food addict. I have 4 brothers who I personally think it's a self-imposed prophecy, okay? But I believe they're food addicts. I believe my parents were food addicts. I come from a long line of food addicts. I have a son and a daughter who think we say they're food addicts. So I mean, I was predisposed to that, I think, genetically. However, I think that what I want to say is that sometimes it doesn't show up in people until much later in their lives, where they may have been predisposed, but maybe they have parents who controlled everything they put in their mouth and had really healthy food in their homes, or they were around people that food wasn't important. But then when puberty takes place, when hormonal changes take place, or when somebody goes off to college, that's another time where all of a sudden you get your freedom to do and eat whatever you want. No one's controlling your environment, and then it will show up.
Is that what happened to you?
No, I knew, I mean, I was heavy as a little person. I don't remember ever being thin.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a program for losing weight where adults went when I think I was in 7th grade, like 12 years old or so. And even before that, it overtly showed on me compared to my brothers. They didn't have any kind of problems growing up. I always did. I mean, I always did. And today, thank you God, I mean, I'm the thinnest of my siblings. It's, if we have a picture together, I mean, you it's amazing to me. For me, it's amazing because overtly it showed so much when I was growing up, and I was always fat, so to speak. And in my day and age of growing up, there was not a lot of obesity like there is today. It's very, very different. I mean, today I can look out my window and I see toddlers who are overweight, toddlers who unfortunately have fatty liver disease already brewing, and if not having it already. It wasn't like that growing up. I mean, in my school growing up, I mean, in my class, maybe I was the only overweight person, overweight girl, you know, and then only be a few of us in the school that were really overweight. So it's very, very different today than it was when I was growing up.
And can I just ask you how old you are?
Yeah, sure. I'll in May I'll be 69.
Wow. Yes.
So
Yeah. Well, and and also a different way of relating to food these days, where what is available for us these days as so-called food, I would imagine wasn't as easily available when you were growing up, or
oh,
didn't even exist.
I'm sure. I mean, I always think of, it's like I've never had a blue M&M. I mean, things have changed. And then I've, I don't go I mean, I really frequent the perimeter of stores because it's like I don't need to get anything but my vegetables, my whole foods, my vegetables, my meat, my eggs. I eat dairy products, some dairy products, and but I remember going down the aisle where there were Oreo cookies, and I know that Oreo cookies were made. They're one of the highest, has the bliss point of the exact amount of, not so sweet, and the middle's really sweet. And I mean, it was engineered that way. And I went down the aisle and I saw all these kinds of Oreos that exist today. I mean, like chip kinds and peanut butter kinds. And I mean, nothing I've ever eaten, and I don't care to eat actually, today. And I'm just always amazed. And also the cereal aisle. Oh my gosh, like all the different cereals that existed. I mean, those didn't exist when I was growing up. I mean, it didn't exist the same way. It probably, but I remember the switch when there was a switch from going to low fat, that you should be eating low fat, because that came out. And of course I know that it's all false from me. My understanding from the reading I've done is it's all a falsehood. That sugar's the culprit, it's not fat at all, because I eat healthy fats today and I'm in what I would call a normal sized body. I mean, nobody looks at me and thinks I've let go of 130 pounds because I have. You would never think that. And I'm happy to tell somebody about it because I want to help people out there, because I think sugar, carbohydrates are killing people. I mean, that's why there's been an increase in, you think of all the inflammatory diseases, the autoimmune diseases. I mean, it makes me sad. I have a friend in my life who's young, like 18 years old. And I know that she eats all these like things that she thinks are healthy, like earth balance, margarines, and you know what I mean? Those kind of things. And I know that that's poison today, that's poison to the body. And she has, I mean, she has to use crutches sometimes because her autoimmune disease is that bad. And I've seen her literally dive into the sweets, the carbs. And it's just like, oh, it breaks my heart because, and I've tried in ways to suggest maybe listening to this podcast or watching this video or whatever, and it falls on deaf ears. So you know what, the only person I can take care of is me, myself, and I do that. I have strict boundaries around that.
That's very wise. And and we don't need to preach the sugar-free life. We preach by example, just by being happy and joyful and healthy. And really that's all that matters.
I want to share when I say that about, letting go of 130 pounds. One of my greatest fears was having grandchildren and not being able to, I have a back injury too, but I'm sure that's because of being overweight for so long. You know, I was 38 when I first started program, if you think it out. Okay. And then I lost that 100 pounds, and then I gained almost all of it back. And now I've since lost it since 2005. So, you know, and now I'm 69. So you can take 69 and take 16 away from that, you know, so what's that, 53, I think. So, you know, it took me a long time. And my doctor would say to me, Judy, I'm worried about your knees. I'm worried about your knees. And I can tell you today that, and I have some knee problems, but I've had a back injury, so that I live with, but I exercise and I swim. I do the best I can to take care of myself today. And so to me, my biggest fear was not to be able to lift up my grandchildren. And I now have two, one's almost 2 years old, one's 2 years old, and one is 3 months. And I've been able to pick them all up, and I've been able to get on the floor with them and get up off the floor. I mean, those are the miracles in my life, because add 130 pounds, which is a whole nother person, onto my body, I'd be lifting me plus that whole other person, plus the 35 pounds of weight of the baby, you know.
Yeah.
You know, think of it that way. So, I mean, to me, I'm a walking miracle. I'm a walking miracle because, you know, I mean, I'm living a full life today because of giving up the sugar and the carbs and losing the weight, which is a byproduct. I mean, it's a byproduct. I have this disease of food addiction, which centers in my brain. My brain learned at a very young age that it wanted more. That's number one. And also, obviously, the sugar and the carbs were a hit to the dopamine in my brain to tell me, whoa, this is great. So let's have more on that account also. And you know, I'm treating my disease. That's what I'm doing by not eating the sugar and the carbs, because the recall, the euphoric recall, what you do is you chase that hit in addiction. You chase that good feeling you once had, but you can never reach it. You'll never reach it, you know, and as you go on, you build up more tolerance. So you need more and more to get even the hit that doesn't give you the hit, you know? And
Yeah.
so, you know, for me, this is a dream come true, to not eat the sugar, to not eat the carbs, and to have peace in my brain, you know, not always, like I said, I always do want more after meal, but I can go hours without it. It's the minute I start to eat. And that's the problem with this addiction versus alcoholism or drugs, is that I have to eat.
Yes.
We have to eat. All of us do. You
Mhm.
know, we need the sustenance to survive. Our brains need that. Our bodies, our organs need that. And I remember sitting at a wedding with somebody who was a doctor next to me. And she said, I just don't understand when you, and she's a bright, bright woman, bright. And she says, I just don't understand this food addiction. You have to eat. And I said, of course you have to eat. And I mean, I eat plentifully. I said, of course I have to eat, but it's certain foods I can't eat that trigger the whole thing of my wanting and wanting and wanting.
Yeah.
Never
And
being
I guess
satisfied.
it's understandable that people who don't have it don't understand it. You know, that it's just normal. If you don't experience it, it just, from the outside, it looks like, well, what's
But
wrong with you?
But
But
Nana, it makes me sad because this is a physician. You know, this is where education is key. And in medical school, physicians get very little on nutrition or any dietary anything.
true.
And so, you know, and even in the worlds of the low carb world, I mean, I know a lot of people, and you know, lots of things that people tell people to eat, I still can't eat because it would be a trigger to me. Even in the, you know, low carb world, it would be a trigger to me because it's duplicating other things that I used to eat that would cause me, my mind to go, whoo, like let's that squirrel again would be
Yeah.
talking to me.
Wake up the
You know what I'm
squirrel.
saying? So there's one thing about, I'm not talking about a diet. I'm talking about food plan that's free of carbohydrates and whatever, and free for me, it frees my addiction up. And it's not just the food. That's just part of it. But then I have to worry about, how my head, because for so long I hated myself because I couldn't stop eating, but I didn't understand why.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt down on myself, my self-confidence, my self-esteem. um I mean, when I had little kids, I mean, I wanted bags and boxes around me and lying on the couch and not taking care of them. That was way more important to me than
Yeah.
their well-being. It's not like that today at all. I mean, believe me, it's not. But I remember being there like that because I was controlled by the sugar and the carbs, the
Yeah.
food. I was
And now,
controlled by it. I
yeah,
couldn't help it. It was my fix. I needed my drug fix. That was my fix.
I get it. Yeah. And now you're free from it.
I am free from it. It is a miracle. I mean, if I'm going anywhere, I bring my food with me. I don't leave anything to chance. Yeah, if they have something I can eat, okay, I'd eat it, but I have my little scale and my fanny pack because those are my boundaries. I'm not telling everybody they have to do that at all, but it's my boundaries. It's my safety net.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's my safety net. It's not something I feel disgruntled with.
Yes.
You know,
It's
it
wonderful. It's
exactly.
wonderful that you have found something that works for you and that you're not here you wouldn't tell anyone to do exactly what you're doing. I mean, they're not you. And
Right.
each of us has to find the balance and the freedom that fits with us. And I
Right.
think it's
Right. And
wonderful.
I do have people in my life that I can call that do exactly what I do. Just so you know. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
you have to find, in my opinion, a community, or you have to connect with people so that understand you, because you can't feel all alone and isolated. And and I know, no matter where we go in our society, I mean, even if you go to a friend's house, if it's somebody that's new, especially, they'll say, "Oh, do you want a cup of coffee and a or something?" And because people, that's what we do. I mean, it nowadays at work, when you think about it, from what I've seen, I mean, we're not all going to work these days,
Yeah.
but when people did go to work, there was always something in the coffee room.
Yeah.
There's always junk. Every meeting you had, something was always had to be served, whether it was at lunch or not. It didn't matter. It has really changed from when I first started working. That was not a priority then, but now it's, and going through the grocery store. I mean, in the checkout line, the garbage that's there that you have to pass through, don't have a choice. I have to laugh because during COVID and the pandemic, the only place I would go was the grocery store, maybe once a week or once every couple of weeks. And there'd be long lines that used to not be there, and I would always have to be in like a middle aisle, and I'd be looking at stuff and looking at what there was. I mean, nothing I would buy, but I was forced to be there. I
Yeah.
didn't have a choice, or I'd lose my place in line.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
It's crazy. And now I think you're helping people to find their own freedom. Is that right?
I am, and it's very, very exciting. A few years ago, I was in the very first class of INFACT, which is an international program for food addiction, and I became certified as a food addiction counselor, which might change to being a food addiction person, whatever. And then I also took recently a course which is now called HME with Bitten Johnson, which is a holistic medicine for addiction. And that was a year-long program. And also, I've been trained in the assessment tool called Sugar. I'm certified and licensed in that, where you can actually interview people, and it's all done online. You can interview people and you can discern whether somebody is a harmful user or a pathologic user, meaning an addict. Because there are some people who just don't know how to eat properly, and if they're taught that, or maybe they've had some psychological trauma or whatever, I'm not making light of that, where they need help from a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a counselor, and then that problem gets solved and then their food issue goes away. Well, an addict's food problem will never ever go away. And it can be caused, we remember I talked about hormones and I talked about going off to college, but it can also be facilitated or started with big T or small T trauma. I mean, that can be a turning point for an addict also. But, this test discerns whether you're really an addict or not. And personally, I don't want to treat people who aren't addicts. It's my specialty. I'm an addict. I can
because you
relate.
understand.
That's right. I understand from way back when, and it's taken me, like I said, it took me, 13 years to then get almost 16 years of abstinence. So I know how hard it is. I'm just coming from where I just put down the sugar and the carbohydrates and la-di-da-di-da, everything was hunky-dory, peach king. It was not. It absolutely was not. I struggled for years, but I found my solution today. And so I help people find their solution, and I'm there for them because, see, the minute you're an addict, and if you're going to go into recovery, you immediately have to work on recovery protection, which in the books talks about relapse prevention. But the organization I'm working with that I've been a co-founder of, we call it recovery protection in the positive twist, because, we have to be positive. We have to be light about this disease. It's not going away. It's not, it's not a shackles and chain type of ball and chain thing. We're the people that in the, prehistoric days, okay, we are the people that would have survived. We're the cavemen that would have survived because we have magical brains, like we would know how to get food. We would know how to get food. Where if you didn't get food, you weren't going to live. You would be eaten by someone else, by that tiger or, lion out there or bear, we'd be a goner. So I consider myself fortunate that I'm an addict.
Yeah, that's lovely to hear.
It's not a bad thing.
And it's great that you have this positive spin on it because, we can put any spin we want on anything. You might as well put a positive one because you're also living proof that that positive spin is, you living your life free and happy and mobile and, great grandma and all the rest of it. You're not a victim of your food addiction.
No, I'm definitely not a victim. And if I thought I was a victim, I'd still be in the food. I had to turn this all around, but that's the other part of this disease. The food is just the base, like 10% of it. The rest of it is the biochemical repair, like working on your breathing, your stress levels. Okay. Then you have to work on rewiring your brain because neurons that fire together, wire together. And mine have been wired totally improperly, that, it wanted the drug hit. That's what it wanted. And so I've had to rewire my brain. Like my reward center wasn't connected very well with my thinking brain, my prefrontal cortex. So I've had to work on rewiring it. And, and that takes like meditation, and, changing my whole thought process of not being a victim, as you said. I mean, I can't be a victim. If I was a victim, I might as well lie down and have the dog sick my throat and be gone.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. That's such an amazing attitude. And we can see, it walking around, living and smiling in yourself. Fantastic. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, I am one of the co-founders, there's 3 of us, for sugarxglobal.com. And if you reached out there, I know this podcast will probably be later, but the gates will be open by the time this comes out for sure. If you reach out there, you'll be able to reach me, through that. And also I have a personal, professional email, which is Judy Wolfe, FA, food addict coach @gmail.com. That's what that stands for.
Excellent.
Oh,
Thank you.
Judy, because some people spell Judy differently. WOLFEFA coach dot at gmail.com.
Fantastic. Judy, it's such a great pleasure to talk with you. Thank you.
And same here. I'm so glad that you asked me to come on, Netta, and share with you
Wow.
and the people that follow you. And, and I hope all goes well for you too, because
Thank
we're
you.
all doing something new
Yeah.
and exciting.
Thank you so much. Amazing. I just find Judy so inspiring. Because of her attitude about her disease, she doesn't let her food addiction take over her life. She's not a victim of it. She has recognized it and found ways to, well, kind of almost befriend it. And that's very empowering, I think, because it lets her be the one in charge. As Judy mentioned, she's one of the founders of SugarX Global, which is a community of individuals that help each other, where you get access to recovery specialists who know how to help you if you think you have a sugar or food addiction. And if you want to reduce sugar, to get more energy, less inflammation, lose a few pounds, and learn to find comfort and reward in other ways than those comfort foods, then head on over to my website aftersugarclub.com and check out all the resources there, including my free simple guide to getting more energy with less sugar. And if you've enjoyed this episode, scroll down and leave a review and let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. And don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss another episode. Thank you for listening. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.